Okay, we're preparing for YouTube coverage. Let's see if this goes okay. Can you hear me okay? Yes, we are on YouTube. Right on, right on. So we are now on YouTube. Okay.
Artificial intelligence is one of the fastest growing fields today. In recent advancement.
All right, so let's get started and get our stream going. Okay, Gopal, welcome to us. So let's get started. I'm going to open up the screen right now. All right, so as you know, we are going to be talking about this new course I've been putting under development, this cryptocurrency with Python development for version 3. Okay, let me just open up my screen here. Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen. Okay, so what we've got here, let me know if you can see the screen or not. Looks like I do have it on my YouTube, yay. All right, so this is the outline of the course. I've been working on it all last week, and I've got it broken down into 11 videos, or sorry, 11 sections here. And essentially what they are is 2 years ago, I created a course called Bitcoin with the Python 2, and with the Python 2, it was quite dated. It was basically the major components that you would need in an algo trading system. We could talk about the advantages doing it this way versus other ways on some retail trading platform like MetaTrader or TradeStation. So what was entailed in that course was basically really dated stuff like downloading data from Yahoo Finance. There was a part on the GUI or graphical user interface stuff, which is really probably the biggest weakness of Python. So I went ahead and I have decided to create a brand new course, update everything. And a lot of it, I think, except for one of the 11 sections, everything was done last week. So it's up to the latest version of everything. And, it's been updated for version 3 of Python. So it's up to date. The version I'm using is Python 6. Python 3.6. And basically, I've also included a couple of videos and sections on cryptocurrency. So this is the course. And as I said, there's 11 parts to it. It's about 3 hours of videos. So what you'll get out of this is you'll learn about the major components in any trading system. I also have a section on brokers and asset class options for those brokers. As I said, we also have a section on Bitcoin specifically, but there is a section for pretty well any cryptocurrency and exchange. I also give some very basic ideas and tips on how to use things like technical analysis to get you started with Python. And one thing is that I should highlight is that the software and plugins that I'm using, which are really called Python packages, everything is open source except for one, which is a visualization. And I played enough with both, all of the major packages out there for visualization with Seaborn a few weeks ago, as well as Matplotlib, and the handling of dates is really weak. And I thought, you know what? for $150 using this package here called Chart Director. It's quite good. It's $150. And that's the only thing that I'd recommend anyone to get when they're learning Python or building out a system. All right, so let's get started on the overall idea here. So the idea here is, obviously, if people may not know that are new, Python is really converging everything. If it's cryptocurrency, machine learning, it's real easy. They're actually teaching kids now in school about Python as young as 9. So there's really no excuse why nobody would not want to learn Python. It's really popular. And then also what I've done is I introduced some basic and very primitive components, because I want to make the course really simple and really divide it up into bite-sized chunks so that people can successfully complete this course, because I've seen time and time again where people get overwhelmed. So I've stripped out a lot of the unnecessary complexities and just show the basics. And then once you get more comfortable with Python, you can add these pieces into your coding and use what I give you as a roadmap. So one of the most important parts is, where do you store your data? NoSQL is a new type of database that's been around for a while, and they're getting more popular. So I do suggest using a true open source database called Redis. And then we go over the cryptocurrency stuff. And I've looked for the last couple of months on how to properly do it. And there's a lot of these so-called trading bots in cryptocurrency, if it's, let's say, Bitcoin. And there's a lot of disadvantages when you start working with web-only languages like PHP or JavaScript. So the one package that I found that I really like a lot is the CCXT. And that's open source. You can easily download that into your Python environment. And I just didn't want to talk about all the exchanges and stuff. I wanted to go over about potentially how to fund your account with any kind of crypto, because here, at least in Canada, and I'm sure it's a global trend, where more banks are banning credit card purchase to fund cryptocurrency, which I think is dead wrong. What you do with your own money is up to you. But there are a lot of banks now that are banning the funding of cryptocurrency. So there are some alternative services that you can use to anonymize your credit card purchases. And there's a whole whackload of other things where you have to do everything anonymously now. And especially with the exchanges are getting regulated or closed up, or, I mean, it's just, there's so many exchanges closing shop. Or a good example is Binance last week received a notice from the Japanese regulators, and they threatened all kinds of actions. So the owners of Binance decided not to proceed in Japan. So they're now relocating to Malta, which clearly shows you that they don't want to be regulated, and that becomes a big trust issue for these kind of exchanges, and they're the biggest one. So I got some questions on the chat. I'll cover in a minute. That's on the YouTube chat. Okay, so the other thing I'll be highlighting is just simple things like reading market data with flat files. And of course, as I said, the chart director, as I call them, pretty charts. And then I have a little demo on using the TA lib, or well, it is really TA lib, but there's a package out there, or a library called TA, obviously Technical Analysis Library. I show you how to use that to use some of the technical analysis capabilities that will give you the same functionality as you would get with any retail trading platform. So there was a question, 3 questions from Alihan, I believe. I'm sorry if I got your name wrong. I cannot download data from Yahoo. There's something wrong I made. And Victor also said the same thing. This is one of the reasons why I took out of my Python 2 course. I think it was last May, where Yahoo Finance decided to disconnect all available connections into Yahoo using one of the pandas data frames, and it broke a lot of scripts. What I found was, I'll address this specifically in the next section, but and when I do that, and I'll answer those questions, because it's pretty important that people understand what's going on with Yahoo and Google Finance. So anyways, I got here all the different videos. It says about 3 hours of videos. The first section covers all the pros and cons of each language. And obviously, the winner for me would be Python, but the actual winner would be MATLAB. But a lot of people can't afford MATLAB. But number 2 would be Python. I cover things like high frequency trading in there and the pros and cons of each language. And it's a half-hour presentation. This is the exact same presentation as in my other course, the Python 2 course, but it's just obviously I spun it in a different way to update to Python 3. So this brings us to the methodologies and tools. Here, I'm just going to cover, actually, when I do this, I'll just skip over one section. And I'll go back to the previous section. So here we have section 3. And there's a lot of options available for your data capture. The big one is just depends upon what your asset class is. So that's nice. That was the nice thing about Yahoo Finance. And the thing about Yahoo and Google Finance, it's free. The problem is regarding I don't think Yahoo and Google really like these third-party Python packages that say to download the free data. They either screw it up, remove the connection, and then whoever owns and maintains the package has to go in, find a solution, and then rewrite a working solution. So if you're live trading like that, it's pretty dangerous, because once you get cut off from your data, you get cut off from your data and you can no longer trade. And I would have said, you know what, for analysis and researching purposes, I would have easily gone with those options, but that's no longer the case. So obviously you want to go with a paid solution. Now, again, it depends upon your market data. If you want universal, I always say to people, go with IQFeed. IQFeed is number 1 for data. It's about, if you want just pure Forex data, you pay like $30 and you get access to, I don't want to say FXCM, but for testing, it's fine. IEX, I discovered a few weeks ago, I think maybe a week ago, that's free for stocks. Apparently there are no limits on it. They do support a lot of languages, obviously with Python, and I introduced one of the packages for IEX support in Python. It's free. All the packages I mentioned are free except for Chart Director. But IEX is fairly new. If you don't know who they are, they're the brokerage that was part of that Flash Boys book. That's probably coming soon, a new movie. So that's the broker behind that. They're pretty clean brokers, as far as I know. The other recommended brokers, if you're just doing for Forex, LMAX is a decent one, but they're out of England. First, I hear they support American residents. Now they don't. That's just one option. Another option is obviously Interactive Brokers, and they pretty well have all the market data out or asset classes covered, options, futures, stock, Forex, and whatnot. The one I like that I'm using is Dukas Copy Forex out of Switzerland. Again, they don't take American residents. I'm sorry to say that. But if you're outside the US, it's a pretty good broker. They also have CFDs, so it's kind of like the poor man's way to trade commodities and indexes, stock indices. So that's decent. So you can connect into, for historical data for free, for the Forex data, using this package called Duka, D-U-K-A. So I introduced, but there is a better way to do that, and that's using the actual Dukas Copy proprietary platform called JForex. So I offer a way to quickly download data for whatever time frame you want for free. And obviously it's only in Java, but I do provide that example. And that's part of this section. So I cover all the data. Obviously, it's important. I try to get it for free. But if you're getting serious for the live trading, everybody says the same thing. You want to go with a data provider where your broker's at, because once you start live trading and your pricing's off because of what you see in your data, that's why. So you've got to make sure you're using the same data from both, from your broker for both data as well as your pricing. That's really important. So I'm going to go to the previous section. I think Victor had another question regarding new Octave, almost same as MATLAB for free. Yeah, that's true, Victor. The problem with Octave, which is great, the problem with Octave is very limited with what MATLAB gives you, but it's a decent little option. So for free, I do like it, but as you can imagine, there's better options in there. And from my point of view, that's called Python. So you got a great community in Python. That's obviously more popular. So going back to the previous section, section 2, hopefully I've answered everyone's questions so far on the data on the Yahoo front. So coming back to the Python tools, I've condensed a lot of sections from the previous video into one 43-minute video. And what I do is I try to show the differences between Python 2 and 3. And really, there's not many. A lot of the packages found in 3, or let's say Python 2 scripts, most likely will run in 3, with the exception of like an input statement or print, where you got to now use parentheses, very minor things like that. So I do cover that. Also, I have here the Hello World example, like any new programming language or example would have. And then also I try to cover as much as possible from a point of view on things like Jupyter and anything machine learning related. The reason I say newbie, it's for anybody that's new to the language, new to programming. As I said, we're trying to strip out all the complexities of programming. So as a result, you just want to focus on the core elements of the language and being able to get stuff done fast and very small amount of number of lines in the code. So when you look at these projects like Jupyter, which is awesome, that's a totally different ball game. That's a totally different course. You can do so much in Jupyter. Machine learning is another one. I haven't yet really dug deep into machine learning, but for my analysis, what I will tell you is I've done a lot of analysis and trading and testing in, let's say, a minute or a sub-minute or under 5 minutes. And there's so much noise at these time frames, you get a lot of false positives in the data and in your signals. So what happens is your signals get thrown off where you think it's going to be a profitable trading position, and it actually isn't. And I think it was like 80% of all the positions that I tested and took on, 80% failed and went, there was no money to be made. And obviously you don't want to trade like that. And I use up to 7-8 different indicators to try to remove those bad trades. And it was just so hard because the markets are so random. So what I did was continuing along with the basic methodologies. As I said, I cover the differences between Python 2 and 3. I'm not sure who's out there, who's experienced with Python. As a R user, I really like R because with RStudio, it's very easy to install packages within R. Well, then I discovered the popular pip, which is an package installer. And a lot of packages are compliant with the pip. So all you do is go pip install your package and it's installed in your environment. It's that simple, and it's very rare that it never works. So I show some demos with the pip. And then of course we have the dilemma of Python on all the operating systems out there. When I started working with Python, I was so frustrated with Python not able to work on Windows. And over time, Windows was the problem, not Python. And I started to realize, this is about 2 years ago, Python worked okay. It worked great on Mac and it worked great on Linux. But if you're trying to do everything on the command line in Windows, it's a real pain. And one of the things I would suggest for people, it looks like Victor's using Visual Studio Rodeo, which is fine. I know Visual Studio supports Python, as well as MATLAB also supports Python as well. But the thing is, everybody's got their different ways of working within just programming generally, and their own tool set, which is fine. I just put mine out there, which is very simple. You don't have to worry about compiling or heavy debugging. And I use an editor called Sublime. It's fairly popular, works for me, and I can get in and out, and I show different demos of that. Victor also mentioned Anaconda. I've worked with Anaconda back in the day. I felt it was very buggy, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel professional. And these IDEs, these integrated development environments, depending upon your level. I've also used PyCharm, which I thought was really good. The problem with PyCharm is that it 1 minute it's awesome. They bring out an update and it's buggy, and it just got to a point where it was like not worth using. So that's why a lot of people are using tools like just editors, no IDEs, and they just use like Visual Code is a popular one. Sublime's another one. So I just show the different options out there. But again, it's nothing to pull your hair over. And then, of course, we go over, as I talked about, the Jupyter and machine learning. As I said, just basically I'm not at that point using it. So I talk about it, I introduce it, give some point of views on it, and that's where I stop to, again, not overwhelm people. So we've gone over the section 3. So section 4. Now, if you're new to Python, here's the dilemma. Python is very easy. It's brain dead easy. If you know how to use Excel, you'll be able to easily, and you'll see the power of Python. Actual fact, I predict that Python will be the new language that everybody will be using that does analysis. And the power of Python is using the pandas package is very popular. And where it really is powerful and very easy to use is the data frame structure. Very easy to manipulate data and do some basic stuff on it. So I show some very simple uses of that. And in fact, I don't know, a lot of people may not know, but Microsoft is rumored to replace the Office suite with Python as their preferred language over the VBA, the Visual Basic, whatever. So that's how serious Python is getting out there in the corporate world even. So when you look at the pandas data frame, you can get so much done in under 10 lines. It's crazy. So you could read a CSV, a comma separated value, which, I mean, everything's in CSV or separated by a tab or a comma. You can read that thing in one line, and you can also, no different than Excel, be able to assign it column headers in one line. It's very powerful. And then once you get everything set up in column and rows, no different than in the spreadsheet, you can then start doing all kinds of neat calculations and doing all kinds of statistical calculations on the ranges that you want to work with. Very easy, very powerful, and it blows my mind on how smart it is. And then once you're done with what you want to do, I show an example how to either export it back to a new CSV or to an Excel format where you can actually load up the file in the format of Excel. So Victor asks, is it possible to hook up live data and run chart real time? I'll get to that in the chart director, Victor. I got a whole section on that, and we'll talk about that at the last part. So moving on, as I said, I've given another section, and you can see these videos are very small, short, some of them under 10 minutes. But this particular section is kind of neat because I played around with TALib, as I mentioned earlier, and the TALib is really powerful, where it gives you all the technical indicators that you would expect out of a popular trading platform, be it, I don't know, whatever you want it to be. And TALib, again, is open source. and it's a C++ library. And then there's wrappers for other languages that will connect into it. And obviously, Python's one of them. So they have a TALib library or package. And when I try to rebuild it, compile it, it's just a real pain in the ass to work with. So what I did was I oddly found a section online where somebody went out and reinterpreted all the major technical analysis indicators that you want and be able to use them in your same script. So it's no longer what they call a dependency. So you can just include them in your script and run all the different indicators that you want. So I showed demos of the Bollinger Band, exponential moving average, standard deviation, and relative strength indicator. And it works. And it works right off the bat once you create your data frame, and you can apply all the different calculations onto the column. So if, for instance, if you're loading in an open, high, low, close of whatever market day you're after, you can then take, let's say, your close column and apply one of these indicators to it. It's not that difficult. It's kind of shocking, actually, how easy it is. Then, as I said, we move into the next video or next database here, NoSQL. Now, NoSQL is very popular because you don't have to worry about creating columns and all this wonky stuff in the database. So the database virtually has no structure, which makes it simple. So essentially, with this one called Redis, which is written in C, you don't have to worry about it. It's written in C, and it's true open source. There's other similar databases that are NoSQL, like MongoDB. They're what they call a freemium. So you have a certain set of features that are free, but then when you want to add on other features like in-memory database, like what Redis is, you have to start paying, and that can run you up to $10,000. So again, this is why I like Redis, because it's true open source and you can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. And I show you different options and design patterns you can implement. And again, this is optional, but a lot of people will want to create a Redis database, because if you moved into, let's say you want to learn interactive brokers in the API for interactive brokers, Redis is great because you can set up your entire system and store all your data into like a data hub. And you can use Redis for that. Redis also includes things like redundancy, replication, all the fully features that you would expect out of a commercial database, and it's free. So obviously I go over why is it used. I talk about the benchmarks. I said it's the fastest database out there. It's in memory. Also, there is a very popular package, open source HFT project, that always uses Redis as the comparison against its own functions. And they always go back to Redis as a comparison, which validates where a lot of HFT shops use Redis as their choice for this database or database-like functions. I also go over the server and client edition. And then, of course, I have the variety of different Python code as well. So then we move into the cryptocurrency. You know what, Victor? I'm going to go to the chart director first before I get into the cryptocurrency, because might be wise. So I'm going to skip to section 11 for Victor's sake on chart director for Python. Now, Python, chart director is again another C++ library. And it can talk to anything. It's smartly designed where it'll talk to Python, for instance, or whatever other language. You can create standalone versions of using chart director, and I'll particularly address Victor's question in a minute. So again, this is an overall demo of the features of chart director, which is which is paid. $150 for the Python edition. I show you how to, again, install onto Mac and Linux version. You can see that I don't mention Windows there, because chart director is very powerful in the Mac and Linux type of environment. It will work on Windows, but what I suggest for people is to, if they are going to be on Windows, maybe set up a VirtualBox environment, like a virtual machine, and set up their own Linux environment and play through that to really implement and really see the power of Python in action in a Linux environment. And again, VirtualBox is free. All the machine, all the Linux stuff, all those are free. Just if you choose to do that. So again, we cover how to install it on Mac and Linux and Unix like operating systems. Now, again, I've looked at Matplotlib and Seaborn's the latest Python package for visualization. And what I found frustrating was the date handling was very not so great, but I found Chart Director was much easier. Obviously, I'll cover the benefits of Chart Director, and as well. Now, this is for Victor's question regarding live data. As I said earlier at the get-go, Python is not very powerful in the graphical user interface world. There's been some attempts, but a lot of people find it very weak in Python. And really, to be honest, Python's not built for that. So if you are a more advanced programmer, you can use standalone versions of Chart Director, which they give you as examples. And you can do it either through the Qt project, which is a C++ project, or for on Windows. You can also do it through the library called MFC Microsoft Foundation class. And they show you examples how to do live charting and standalone charting as well. And again, that's part of the feature of Chart Director for, let's say, C++. So that's to answer Victor's question. And then one thing I want people to be aware of is when I create the charts, I'm doing it within the console terminal of the operating system. So it's not like I bring up a GUI or a graphical user interface, push a button, and it'll create the chart. That goes back to these standalone charts, which is said in either Qt or the Microsoft Foundation library. So let me go back to the cryptocurrency stuff. Okay, so first thing is, as I said earlier about cryptocurrency, cryptocurrency is now heavily regulated. If you got any questions, go ahead and ask either on the chat or on the other chat of the Zoom. I'll gladly answer whatever you may have. The cryptocurrency world last year, obviously in 2017, was huge. And that's what brought me into it. I still think based upon the volatility of cryptocurrency, there's still a lot of validation to it. When you do a trade cryptocurrency, like general trading, whatever you fund, whatever exchange or whatever currencies you go with, you got to go in with the impression that you may lose the entire principal of your account. And as long as you realize that, cryptocurrency is something worth looking at. And as I said earlier, funding a cryptocurrency account is becoming more difficult. As I said, lately in the last few months, banks are banning the ability to fund cryptocurrency exchanges and wallets or whatnot via a credit card. I understand the logic, but what you do with your money is really up to you. So what's been happening is there's all these different credit card options and anonymous sources that you can use. Legitimate, I don't know, but I'm just suggesting them. And the real reason why a lot of these banks are blocking the funding of cryptocurrency is very simple. Is that people were last year caught up in the hype, and they go in and fund an account of a couple of grand and probably lose. And the banks are trying to prevent that from happening. I've heard that the divorce lawyers were having a heyday last year because of divorces because of cryptocurrency. So it's not a good thing. So the banks stepped in, but the legit guys and gals get punished because of it. So there's roundabout ways where you can fund the account. So once you get that all set up, what I go over is this package called CCXT, which is a cryptocurrency exchange platform or a Python package. They do have options for both Python and PHP. Again, I mentioned earlier, that's probably not the wisest language to work with these type of things because you get a lot more flexibility that you would get with Python. So what I do, I cover some of the working examples and where the exchanges you don't need to be registered because, you know, they have this know your customer business, and there are some exchanges out there that enable you to fund exchanges. Again, legitimacy is another question, but I'm just putting these as suggestions. I have no affiliation to any of these whatsoever. So the one I would start with is coinmarket.com. Coinmarket.com can give you the volume and the liquidity and da-da-da-da. It's a good one, potential resource to build a start from for some kind of cryptocurrency strategy. Now, last week, I don't know if you saw, there was a study done where they say coinmarket.com is faking the volume levels on all the exchanges that they list. So it comes back to the same thing, like who do you trust in this world? And that's why I always say, when you start out in this business, you got to make sure that you whatever funding you're going to provide, that you're willing to lose, because it is somewhat a high risk maneuver, but can be very profitable due to the volatility of it, where you get like a 5-10% volatile swing moves in a 24-hour period. When you get that, that's an opportunity if you make the right calls. We'll go over that in the next section. So as I said, we do an introduction to the coinmarket.com. I try to show you some of the reliable exchanges. And again, at the time of recording, which was last week, I also go over the advantages of Python over the web programming languages like PHP and JavaScript. I pretty well mentioned them already. And then most of all, we go through the examples of the package to show you what works and what doesn't. But the beautiful thing I like about CCXT is, as I said, because of all the changes in the exchanges, and this thing will talk to over 100 exchanges, and it's a wrapper. So when there's a change in an exchange, your code does not change. The underlying code within the package changes, but you don't have to ever see that, because the CCXT package will shield you from those complexities. So let's say if you have a strategy built for a particular exchange and that exchange gets shut down, a good example being you work with Binance, for whatever doesn't look good, but you have your code, your trading logic, and your strategy built for Binance. You can easily swap over the trading logic to another exchange, because the connection part into Binance or whatever other exchange should stay the same. So that's one of the big advantages of it. So somebody's asked a question. Oh, hey, Per the Stir. Hey, how you doing? Welcome everybody, actually. Okay, so that's one of the big things and the big advantage of a library or a package like CCXT. It gives you that huge advantage. So as I said earlier, anybody can jump in right now if they got questions. Okay, now we get into the neat, juicy stuff. I've looked at fundamental data for a long time, and it's been drilled in my head to always use forward-looking data. So what I'm about to show you for Bitcoin and any other crypto, if the data is available, it's forward-looking. So I'm going to give you some tips right now, but I cover in a little more detail in this video. And what we do is we go over how can you build a strategy with crypto using some of these methodologies. This is no different than options trading, no different than futures trading, because they always use forward-looking data. Very important to remember that. The historical patterns, the historical data is important, yes. But as I said earlier, if you're trying to do what I did back a few months ago, trying to trade with data in a time frame under 5 minutes with all the fake false positives that you get, that's all because the market's too random. It's no different than the crypto world. So if you have more forward-looking data to work with, the better chances you'll be able to pick up long-term trends. Can't guarantee it, but you may have some better potential. So there's this very important ratio called NVT, which basically looks at the ratio of the volume and I'm not going to get into it, but you can easily, there's a Forbes article that fully explains it. But basically what it does, it will look at the volume of exchanges of something like CoinMarketCap. And you're able to build out ratios on potential pricing, direction, or other change in the direction of a price on specifically Bitcoin. So the other big things to note about Bitcoin is, I'm not sure if they have an options market for Bitcoin yet, but definitely for the futures with the CME and the CBOE, when they opened up the futures contracts for Bitcoin to try to legitimize the instrument called Bitcoin for institutional traders. And if you, as I said, if you're going to bet on any particular instrument for the futures market or for the options market, they're doing the same thing. So they've built these contracts for Bitcoin back, I think they started last year, the year before. And it's this is for really for institutional traders, but you can still use the data with the bid and ask volume, open interest, all these different components within these contracts to figure out where the shorts or the longs will be on Bitcoin. An example would be last Thursday or Wednesday, there was all of a sudden shorts put on into the future contracts of Bitcoin. They got hit. What happened the next day? They got hit, and Bitcoin got hit pretty hard. Bitcoin and pretty well any other crypto is news driven, but you can also use this type of methodology to forecast where the pricing of Bitcoin may go. And again, open interest is another good one because it shows you, as the term says, the open interest of that particular asset, obviously Bitcoin. And then the other one that I verify you can get information with Bitcoin is using the commitment of trader reports. Again, you can Google it. You can see the what institutions are doing, if it's a pension funds or the asset managers, all the different types of participants in the markets, what they're doing with Bitcoin. The disadvantage with the COT reports is it's weekly. So it can verify your methodology, but it's not every day or every hour. But on a particular, I think it's Tuesday or Thursday that they come out. So you can confirm some theories you may have. Now, the other thing is, again, I mentioned this already, is using the marketcap.com, coinmarketcap.com for volume. Volume is a really important one. Liquidity is the important one. But the hard thing to really be able to gauge on the performance or the forecasting of these current cryptocurrencies is the volume or the news. Whereas last week, I think it was last Friday, Mark Carney said they're not interested in regulating Bitcoin in England. This is the Bank of England chairman. What happens? The price goes up. Today, there's some news. I can't remember what the news was, but it got slapped back and 8% down from last night. And it's very news driven. Unfortunately, these are very hard, very difficult ways to forecast because they're essentially like a shock in the system. And no matter who you talk to, it's very hard to forecast shocks in the system where they greatly impact the pricing, whichever way it may go. So you have to keep that in mind when you're dealing with assets like Bitcoin. And as I said, with my Dukas copy, as part of one of the CFDs that I can trade is Bitcoin. And I can watch what the price is doing within that CFD instrument for Bitcoin in Dukas copy. So that is an option I can always have to my availability versus trading directly in all the exchanges, because obviously most of the volume is in Bitcoin anyways, where it's a huge percent. But you can get some nice run-ups from some other smaller currencies as well. So that's my presentation. Anybody got any questions? Some people may ask, when's this going to come out? I'm just uploading the content right now into my website, and I'll maybe making it available. What you can do is I have an email list. So let me bring up my browser. And if you are interested, all you got to do is go to my site, quantlabs.net/blogs, probably your best option. What you'll have here, if you scroll down, let's say, in a few seconds, you'll get a yellow pop-up that will show up. Where is it? Oh, maybe it's the browser. The question is, do I have a blocker? Let me try out my Safari here. Okay. Okay, quantlabs.net blog. You can see I'm on a Mac. And you should be looking for. Now, the other way to get around it's here at the top, I have a section called courses. All you gotta do there is just click on that little button. I'll say reserve your seat. It'll walk you through some stuff. And yeah, you just fill in your details and we'll be able to track and get your email captured. And then I'll be sending out all the details on the course itself. So yeah, so that's pretty well it. Any questions at all? We've got a couple of people online. I appreciate you all being part of this. Any other questions? Because hopefully I've answered a bunch of people. At all. We've got a chat here. We've covered all the questions covered for both Victor and Alihan, I believe. Again, I'm sorry about your name. Anybody. We're going to continue doing these presentations online Mondays at 7 p.m. Oh, Rob had a question or a comment, I believe. When is the program set to be released? Like I said, Rob, I'm gonna be here. Let me just put up the link. Just get on my email list. If you go to quantlabs.net/courses, you'll be able to put in all your details here. And I'll capture it, and then my system will send out all the details in the next few days when it will go out. And once I launch, it'll have a pretty low price, and then it'll quickly ramp up from there on the pricing. And then I'll have another option down the line because I'm going to be adding a new course, not a new course, but a new module. If you may not know, but I also have a course on interactive brokers, which is a lot more detail, more designed for advanced developers for both C++ and Java. But I'm going to add a new module for that for the Python API option, which interactive brokers just added sometime last year. So I'm going to do a new module for that. The other thing is I'll be doing live sessions as well. I did a survey on my Facebook group a few weeks ago, and it's clearly everybody wants Saturdays, so that's the day I'll be doing it. Time yet is still to be determined. When I first created this course, I didn't realize how short it was. I mean, it's 3 hours. So if you go through the videos pretty fast, you'll have 3 hours of videos to watch, but they cover everything. So I can probably keep the live course or the live session under probably 4 hours, because I did one for the interactive brokers and it was about 5 hours. So that was really intense. So these live sessions are good because we can cover more live examples that you may have, because you want to go through the course first and then come back like in a regular class and cover all the live stuff, all the problems you may have in whatever environment. And that's the whole point of these live sessions. and that gets recorded, and then that becomes a new module for the course. And then after that, it becomes a video on demand course for people. So as I said, the other option I'll be adding on top of this one is the interactive brokers with a Python module covering things like historical data, being able to work with real live data in interactive brokers using the Trader Workstation or the TWS software, and then doing a couple of orders. And that's pretty well it, just to show you that the plumbing can work. And then that's it. And then this particular presentation today on this particular course is, I'm really surprised at how high in demand it is versus all the other stuff that I do. But then there's going to be a bunch of people that want to follow where I go. As I said, if you are not in the US, nothing against the US, but if you ever wanted to go with the broker I'm with, Dukas Copy, I'm going to have a whole slew of courses for that, which I kind of have them, but I'm going to bring them together. And we'll go over things like the J4X platform and doing some really cool stuff in Java for J4X and Dukas Copy, and being able to use the CFDs and the 4X options. And there's over 500 plus instruments to choose from in Dukas Copy. But if you're only interested in the really more liquid CFDs with the 4X pairs, it's about 100 instruments in total, but just under 100 instruments. But then there's the more exotic stuff for 4X pairs, like, I don't know, Ruble and the Israel shekel or some weird cross like that. They have those kind of pairs as well. And it'll run you up to about, I think about 60 to 80 total pairs of currency pairs with Dukas Copy. And it's really nice. And then you can also do the same thing with CFDs as well, where the CFDs enable you to get access to a commodity where you don't have to pay the full face contract value of the instrument, let's say oil or whatever, like, you know, putting out $1,000 or whatever, whereas you can get the CFD for a much, much lower cost, get the same behavior, and do it at a much, much lower risk. And again, once you have your strategy developed for that particular commodity or index, then you can go out and say, okay, I've done it in Dukas Copy, and hopefully I know that the behavior is the same between the two brokers. Then you can take that trading logic and then move it over to interactive brokers to do the big boy stuff like the real options and real futures. That's the logic I'm going to be going with over the next 6 months to a year. And there'll probably be some people that will follow along with that. So that's the vision I have right now. But right now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of newbies out there wanting to get into the algo trading with the Python. So I built this course, and also there's a popularity of the crypto stuff as well. So I'm going to shut up now. Has anybody else got any questions at all? Let me know. And as I said, hopefully, hang on here. Sorry, Rob, I missed your question here. Will you look at BitMEX down the line, unregulated exchange of crypto futures? Yeah, well, I mentioned that already. Let me pull up the CCXT section. So in the CCXT section, which is the package I really like, this one, Intro to Coin Market, all this, the CCXT is very beautiful, where it's designed as a wrapper to over 100 exchanges. And one of those exchanges is BitMEX. As I mentioned earlier, with BitMEX, you have the ability to use as which is really a derivative exchange. It's not a traditional retail exchange as you would expect, but it is, as Rob says, it is unregulated. But yeah, it is covered. CCXT will talk to it, and you can apply the same logic that you develop for one exchange, and you can easily apply it to the BitMEX. The problem is that a lot of these different exchanges have different behavior. As I said, if there's news in Bitcoin on something, it may have a totally different behavior for each of the exchanges. So that's something that we cannot really design in any strategy. So we get a question from I'll just say PERSDR. Do I need to go back to high school statistics course in order to get up to speed to build my own algo trading system? No, I don't think so. If you look at this section here on the data manipulation using pandas, look, my math is horrible just as much as probably the next person. Learning statistics will help, but let me just find it here. This one right here, section 4. Here you can see apply statistical calculation and manipulate rows. All we're doing there is applying a mean, a standard deviation, and that's it. If you know that stuff, you're good to go. You can go into more powerful Python programming using normalized distribution and spitting out what they call it descriptive statistics like kurtosis and all that. You can get that data quite, I won't say easily, but with certain Python packages, you can use them to get that data, and it's all there. And it's very simple. And all you're doing is just feeding in your data column that you want, which is usually an open, high, low, and close. You push the close column in there to get your statistical data. And all you're doing is just running a method or a function against that column of data. It's very simple. And how you interpret it is up to you. But I really don't think you need to know a lot of deep understanding of statistics to build a basic algo trading system. Now, if you want to go full quant, Python can do all that for you. But this, I want to keep it simple for people, get them up and running and get them to finish the course. But the quant stuff is a totally different level. And if I threw that kind of stuff for the machine learning, no one would be able to complete stuff. So I just put in this little thing to get the email at quantlabs.net/courses in the chat. I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah. So it's in my chat on the Zoom. Oh, I got to sign into you too. So here, let me show you how to do it. Okay, so if you're interested, just get on my email list. Just come into, I'll just go into anywhere on my quantlabs.net site. And all you got to look for, it's so easy. Just look up for courses and just fill in your data here under your reserve your quote unquote seat, and my system will capture it, all your data. Also, if you want to follow me on social media, I've got quite a lot of social media. I've got Instagram, the usual, the Twitter. The Facebook is the big one. I have here about, hang on here. I've got about, let me just load up. Yeah, I have about 11,000 people in my social media for the group on my Facebook. So it's pushing 11,000 people. So again, that can be found under the results section here. And again, you just click on any of the icons for whatever social media you want. Yeah, but the big one for most engagements on the Facebook stuff, and you just join through that. Also, I do put out a blog now that's available through the iTunes store or whatever. And there's, geez, my browser, I'm just operating a computer with no mouse right now. So let me just do this. If you go to my blog, you will get access to the podcast. And I'm probably putting stuff out almost every day. And it's really just the audio version of the videos. So right here, it's hosted on Podbean. So you can get all your stuff on through a podcast format as well. Anybody else got any questions? So that's if you want to follow me, and obviously I post quite a bit on the blog. And then the big ones, the courses as well. And hopefully you may want to listen to the playback as well on the video once this video stops recording, and then you'll be able to get immediate access to the video, I believe, on YouTube. Anybody else got any questions? We're just over an hour. Any other questions about trading or algo trading systems? I can definitely cover anything that you may have. I'm going to be trying to do these every Monday moving forward like I used to. I do have a social meetup as well on meetup.com in Toronto. Our next meetup will be on April 2nd, 7 p.m. Always on Monday nights, what people seem to like. And I've been kind of on that same day of the week for the last number of years. Anybody else got any questions or concerns I'd like to say? If not, if you've got any questions on trading or automation, let me know. I can help you out. I got some questions over the weekend about Federal Reserve and outlook of the Federal Reserve. Just so you know, I do have from a few years ago some scripts that I wrote that analyzed the U.S. federal. Oh, thanks, Barath. I appreciate that. You rock, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming out. Like I was saying about the Federal Reserve, I do cover that. Sorry if I got your name butchered there. But I do have a couple of scripts I wrote years ago that will go through the econometrics. So I do have one for Federal Reserve, and it's very powerful. Gives you the outlook of where the Fed may increase rates. Obviously, that has a huge impact on the US dollar. I have the same sort of scripts that will go through and look at market sectors and what's hot, what's not. And that's using, again, as I said earlier, forward-looking data. Montreal rocks, dude. You got it right. Better, at least better than most Montrealers. That's from the YouTube. I appreciate that. And as like I was saying about the econometrics stock data, yeah, you can build some very powerful arbitrage strategies with that. As I said, I'm more experimenting with the stuff through Dukas copy because the CFDs look pretty powerful, and it's kind of saddens me for Americans not to be able to participate in the CFDs in the States because, well, the regulators, the CME lobbyists decided to ban them, not make it available to Americans. But as an instrument, as an asset class, very interesting to look at. I'm going to do an analysis to see if all of these commodities or indexes behave the same way as you would expect in their corresponding exchange. So that's what I'm hoping to accomplish. And if I come away with, yes, they are similar, you now have a poor man's way to trade these things without putting a lot of risk out there. So that's what I'm really interested in doing, because Forex I'm interested in. It's one of the hardest things to automate and build strategies around. But with the analysis, I put out a couple of videos, and what kind of surprised me was that things like Treasury, gold right now, because obviously the markets are turning, everything's going defensive, they have a much, much better rate of return moving forward than Forex does. I mean, when you add in leverage of Forex, it becomes more dangerous when they don't work in your favor. Whereas if you decide to do something like the US Treasury or gold, or let's say oil, you can participate that through CFDs. And that's kind of like what I like from what I'm seeing. But again, it's just theoretical, as you imagine. So there's a lot of experimenting here, but I will tell you, not saying it can't be done. It's just right now to trade under 5 minutes, it's pretty tough to do. And to fully automate an entire system is tough to do. So even if you were just wanting to build an entire system to give you signal generation, this is still the best way, I think, to do it, because you have total control of the source code and you own the source code. And the best thing is if you're willing to put the time and energy in and you start to understand how the data works, how the programming, the source, you'll be so close to the data and so close to your trading results because you'll understand it, as opposed to being dependent on a black box trading system hooked up or tied into a potential broker that's working against you and wants you to lose money. And that's the thing about source code and owning that, all that stuff at the programming code level. You have more control over that. And I think it's one of the most liberating things to have instead of relying on black box technology. I think I've said enough ranting here. Anybody got any questions or concerns? Let me know, and I'll get them all covered. If not, I'm going to still try to do something for next week, next Monday, a week from now. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I think, what's today, the 27th? No. Yeah. So next week is my meetup with my group in Toronto, face-to-face. But the following week, I guess that would be the 9th of April. I'm hoping to do some proper analysis and show you some charts I actually generated from Chart Director, and a little more professionalism versus the other stuff that I put out with proper dates and stuff, because it's kind of, I don't know, I'm not happy with it. But the Chart Director charts are really good. And then we can go over some of the assets and show you some of the analysis of that. And but I don't know where the markets will be in 2 weeks. They could have a totally different result than what I saw about a week ago, Friday, 9 days ago. And that's the other fascinating thing, is that these charts can give you different forecasting week by week, day by day. And the other thing is, with the Python stuff or automation generally, I know people that takes like hours and sometimes days or even weeks to do certain types of analysis. But once you get a process written in Python that you wrote and that you're comfortable with, and you get it working, you can run that thing in a few seconds or a few minutes and save yourself all that time. Not only that, but because you're saving your time through the automation, then you can expand your asset selection. So instead of you as a human, because you only have the capabilities to watch, let's say, 2 assets. Last week we had a guy who was just triple Q, and I can't remember the other one, if it was SPY or something. And he felt that those were the best ways to trade, but that was his limited capacity. But with automation, you have, in my case, almost 100 assets. So another question on the Zoom. Is your TO meetup group, Toronto meetup group, advanced or all levels of trading experience? Everything. We've got people that come in. We've got a few regulars. And we can even talk about whatever you want outside of trading, travel or whatever. It's just a way for people to get together. But we do cover different programming experiences. It's a nice thing about it. We just do it in a restaurant social setting. So that's how we do that. And it's free again. Well, that's free, but it's in a restaurant. So I guess the restaurant would want you to be eaten. But outside of that, it's no cost. Anybody else got any questions? Because they're up to an hour and a quarter. I don't mind doing these. Actually, I love doing these. So again, if you want, just go to my Facebook group and just look for Quant Labs Net, and you'll find the groups, my page or the group. But you're better off to be in the group. Anybody else? And as I said, if you are interested, just come under on my blog or my quantlabs.net here, and just go under courses, and you can sign up and get yourself all oops, that's my video. Yeah. Okay, but that's pretty well it. And I'm, like I said, I'm going to be launching this probably the next few days. And yeah, I'll put out a good price for people that want to do it. The whole video time, just under 3 hours. So I think people may be able to hopefully get some knowledge out of it. So Barath, all I say is I'm doing okay with the name. For people like me who join in late, is there a way to reach out and ask questions? Yes, absolutely. You'll get my email. You probably don't have my email. I even have people that Facebook message me. love Python, man, but a total noob and trading Forex and everything in that sphere of algorithms. Yeah, Forex is an interesting animal to trade. It is probably the hardest asset class out there. I think once you get a potentially profitable trade, and again, consistently, that's tough business. But even if you don't get as far as that, you can still use a lot of the results that you generate from the charts and be able to be really comfortable with your trading decisions as a human, because you've worked off the data, you've got the data, you've got the charting, and you can even build systems that will give you signals out of that. And if you do have a proper system or strategy that actually works, then there's no reason why you can't automate those trades. It's just getting to that point is tough. But I've seen some positions do crazy profit. That's just it'd be nice to see more of them, but they're hard to achieve. Like I said, when I was doing it at the beginning in December, 80% of those trades or positions were not profitable because of the number of false positives it gave. And the hard part is it's just the markets are too random. And if you step in the world of cryptocurrencies, as I said earlier, it's the problem is the shocks of news that just comes out of nowhere. They're going to regulate this, it's going to shut down that, or blah, blah, blah. And it just throws the price off, and it can throw your whole system off. Brad asks, I have seen some crypto. I have some crypto to play with, but I am mostly AI deep learning CNN guy who wants to learn this too. Yeah, see, the thing is, I was looking at all that stuff that you mentioned, AI, deep learning, all that, and I found it really tough to be able to get any predictable results with it. For instance, my next phase over the next couple of weeks, I was hoping to get a guy to custom code my patterns. I'm still deciding on that. Was to do technical analysis type of patterns. And I'll tell you, all this time, I literally laughed at technical analysis. It looked like a joke. And same with somewhat the fundamental. Just get into the quant stuff. Very difficult, very tough to do unless you have the background in the math and really high-end programming. I'm sure it can be done, but from a technical analysis level, it's much easier to understand. And it's just a lot less noise to work with. And I've seen time and time again as traders, and I keep saying the same analysis. There's three ways you can trade from different points of view. You can trade from a mathematician point of view, computer science point of view, or a trader point of view. And the only ones that seem to make good money, like really decent, consistent profit, is as a trader. And those same traders are going to look at news, they're going to look at whatever else, and use technical analysis to set their pricing target levels as well as confirming their theory or trading ideas. And that seems to kind of work. And I'm like, okay, let me try it. I've been trying it. I'm like, wow, it's a lot simpler to work with. And when you start to work with all this machine learning stuff, it's a lot of stuff, a lot of overcomplication to kind of get the same result. And I still want to play around with machine learning, specifically TensorFlow. But I hope it's not the same thing that I went through when it came to back a few months ago, where I just struggled for months and weeks trying to do the sub 5-minute type of analysis. And it was really frustrating. But the technical analysis seems to work nice because I can quickly see the results that I want. And I don't know if you've seen my videos on that, but it's shocking to see the differences in the same analysis. And when it comes to a portfolio point of view, you want to put your money where it's going to give you high probability of return and pretty well the same risk as well. So that's pretty well it. Anybody, as I said, got any questions or concerns? I'll definitely answer them. If not, we can continue this next week if you're in Toronto. or in 2 weeks online. But again, if you want to get access to all this stuff that I've got right now, just join my email list by going into the courses, as I said. All right, anybody else? I'll do it going once, twice, and we'll wrap her up for tonight. Okay, if you got any questions, type them up now so I can see them. But in the meantime, I'll do it going once, going twice, going 3 times. So that's, I'm assuming, pretty well it. I appreciate you guys being part of this. And maybe I might see you next week, or if you're interested, let me know and I'll get in touch with you via email. No problem, Brath. Really appreciate it, man. You being part of this. And wherever I can help you out, I definitely will. And thanks again, everybody watching on YouTube or the Zoom itself. And we'll continue this next week in person and 2 weeks online. Oh, I just got another Q&A. I'm sorry. Oh, no problem. Thanks, Anonymous. We always have the most popular name is always Anonymous. But again, thanks again for coming on out, and just get on the list for the courses, and I'll send out all the details on the courses. So I'm currently uploading everything right now. Let me just see. I want to make sure I got everybody. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else got any questions? No? Okay. So let me wrap her up, and we'll see you in a week or 2 weeks. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night or day wherever you are.